Hello, my friends, and welcome back to another episode of Snuggles and Storytime. My name is Amanda, and I'm so glad that you could join me today. Today, I have a story about a tractor. A tractor who tries to make friends with a scarecrow. Have you ever tried to be friends with a scarecrow? Do you think it would work very well to be friends with a scarecrow? We'll find out more about that story in just a bit. But before we do, we need to say hello. So please put your hands up so you can join me. Are you ready? Here we go. Hello, all my friends, how are you? Hello, all my friends, how are you? With the jiggle, 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 and a wiggle, wiggle, wiggle. Hello, all my friends, how are you? Today, I have a story about a tractor who's kind of famous. Famous means a lot of people know them. And this tractor's famous because he has lots of books. His name is Otis. Otis the tractor. And today, Otis is going to be friends with the Scarecrow. Yeah, it's called Otis the Scarecrow. And it's written by Lauren Long. She has lots of books about Otis the tractor. And Otis the tractor does lots of cool things on his farm. So you should check them out. There's even one story about Otis and there's a tornado. Super cool. You should check it out sometime. But today our story is about Otis and the Scarecrow. Are you ready? Okay. It was summer when the Scarecrow first came to the farm where the friendly little tractor named Otis lived, back when the corn was tall and ripe. Otis recalled how the crows were scared at first. They wanted nothing to do with the Scarecrow, which made the farmer very happy. Otis was also happy. A new friend had come to live on the farm. But when Otis went to welcome him, the Scarecrow didn't smile or say hello. He just stood there, a sour look on his face. Sour is kind of like mean, staring at the cornfield. After a while, Otis just left him alone. When the farm animals came by to greet the Scarecrow, once again, he didn't smile or say hello. He just stood there with that sour look on his face, staring at the cornfield. The animals didn't know what to think. Who was this new creature? The horse curled up his lips at the Scarecrow's musty smell. The duck pointed out his tattered clothes. The little calf and puppy were frightened by him. Finally, the bull snarled, huffed, and turned away. And the Scarecrow stood there alone. So I don't think the Scarecrow was really bothered by that. Why do you think the Scarecrow didn't mind that he didn't have friends? You think maybe the Scarecrow likes to be alone? Maybe. Or maybe it's because the Scarecrow is not a person or an animal, so he doesn't have feelings. Maybe. Let's keep reading and find out. Summer passed, and by, the crows came back around. They perched and picked and pecked at the Scarecrow. Otis noticed that the Scarecrow didn't shoo them away. He just stood there with that sour look on his face, staring off at the cornfield. Otis puffed a soft sigh and turned to catch up with his friends. So at first, these crows or those birds were scared of him, but now they're not. Why do you think he didn't shoo them away? Because he's not real. He can't move his arms. Autumn eventually arrived. The days grew shorter and cooler. Harvest time had left the fields bare, except for the plump pumpkins dotting the field orange. Otis began pulling wagons filled with children, eager to pick out a pumpkin of their own to carve into a jack-o'-lantern. The farm looked different, but Otis loved the changing seasons, and he worked and he played as hard as ever. Put, puff, puffity, puff, chuff. It was a splendid time on the farm for being together with family and friends. The cool air drifting through the hills made the animals more rambunctious. That means they like to play and be sassy than ever. A simple game of follow the leader turned into a reckless race through the rolling hills. A game of hide and seek turned into a rowdy rendition of Ring Around the Rosie. The animals played playfully circling Otis as he sat, counting 1 putt, 2 puff, 3 putty, 4 chuff. When Otis was tuckered out from all the games, he headed up the hill to the apple tree. His frisky friends would join him, and when they were all sitting together, Otis would challenge everyone to a different game. The quiet game. The quiet game is a contest in which everyone must stay quiet and still. No sounds, no laughing, no snorting, no quacking, no giggling, or no puffing. The player who stayed quiet the longest wins. Otis knew the animals loved playing any game, even one that challenged them to sit still. To start the game, he would surge his engine to get everyone's attention, taking a deep breath of air and let out a long puff, 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 so everybody was quiet. Otis would sit quietly and look over the farm. There was mud pond filled with autumn rains. There was a plump pumpkin sitting in the orange field. There were shocks of corn fodders in a row. And there still was the Scarecrow, all alone, staring sternly at the empty cornfield. The puppy was always the first to lose the quiet game. He just couldn't sit still. The bull would twitch his nose, which would make the little calf giggle. Then that made the bull chudle with a snort. The bull's snort would amuse the ducks, and their bottoms would wiggle as they giggled at the sight of the bottoms of the ducks wiggling. The horse would be so amused that he would roll on the ground, laughing and neighing with laughter. At this, the ducks would quack out loud, and soon everyone was laughing, snorting, quacking, and giggling. This always left Otis to be the winner, a big grin on his face as he sat under the apple tree with his friends. One day, a cold rain set in. Otis and the animals ran for cover under the apple tree. They huddled together for warmth as Otis looked over the farm. There was an overflowing mud pond. There was the shiny, wet pumpkins and the soaked corn shocks all in a row. And there, swaying back and forth in the cold wind and rain, was the Scarecrow. Otis couldn't take his eyes off of him. He thought about how scared the Scarecrow must feel. Do you think the Scarecrow was scared? Would you be scared if you were stuck in a storm? I think I would be scared. Let's see what happens. Otis stood up. He marched down the hill. Put, puff, puffity, puff, chuff, and he crossed into the empty cornfield. Without hesitation, Otis chuffed and puffed straight up to the Scarecrow. Back under the apple tree, the animals watched intently. Intently is another word for carefully. So the animals were watching to see what Otis was going to do. Otis looked up at the painted eyes of the Scarecrow and smiled. The Scarecrow didn't smile back. He just stared off into the big empty cornfield as always. The two of them stood quietly in the great big field as the wind and rain battered them. Then Otis turned his body around and backed right up alongside the Scarecrow. And with a chuff, he sat down next to him. What do you think's gonna happen? I don't know, let's see. Suddenly, the little calf and the puppy scampered down the hillside, crossed into the cornfield, and curled up right next to Otis. Gradually, the cow and the horse ambled down the hillside. Before long, the ducks waddled down that way too. So all the animals are coming down, stand in the rain with the Scarecrow and Otis. And finally, the big bull sauntered down into the field, joining the others. Otis surged his engine to get everyone's attention, took a deep breath of air, and let out a very long, soft put, puff, puffity shh. Otis and the animals sat quietly. Until Puppy couldn't sit still for another minute. Bull snorted on the calf's ears, and the ducks wiggled their bottoms, and soon everyone was giggling, quacking, laughing, even puffing. Everyone except the Scarecrow, of course, who never made a sound. Think he won. Yet, as Otis watched, he couldn't be sure, but he thought he might have seen the Scarecrow smile. Either way, Otis thought the Scarecrow didn't look so lonely anymore, surrounded by friends. The end. Did you like that story? I like Otis stories. If you like that story, you should check out more stories from the library. He's got a bunch. Until next time, my friends. Bye-bye.